Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, the top 10 things you should know about surviving a nuclear attack. With all of the hostility around the world today, it's understandable if you may be at least a little bit worried about becoming a victim of a nuclear attack. While we truly hope that you never have to use this advice, it's still important to be prepared for any possibility. And in the video today, we're looking at 10 survival tips about what you can do before, during, and after a nuclear attack. Number 10. Run. This goes without saying, but if you're still alive after a nuclear attack, run for your life. If you are close to the area where a blast has gone off, do not look directly at it because it can cause you to go blind. You actually want to open your mouth because if you don't, your eardrums will actually burst from the sound of the blast. Anyone within half a mile where a nuclear bomb goes off has a 90% chance of dying immediately and a 50% chance of being killed within a 2-mile radius. According to Professor Erwin Redlener of Columbia University, nuclear bombs produce a tremendous amount of wind following the blast. Take notice to which direction the wind is blowing and where you see the most damage. Simply head in the opposite direction. Radiation travels so quickly that if you are within a 5-mile radius of the blast, you will only have 10 to 15 minutes to seek shelter before you are pummeled with enough radiation to kill you. Your priority should be to get far enough away or seek an appropriate shelter. Number 9. Get inside. While this may seem like common sense, you need to get inside if you want to survive after a nuclear blast. During the Cold War, the prevailing advice was to duck and cover, even if it meant laying down in the middle of the street. At the time, the government had very little knowledge about fallout, and in the film they compare a radiation flash to getting a bad sunburn. We now know that the reality is that the heat of an atomic bomb is tens of millions of degrees Fahrenheit, and that it causes skin cancer almost instantly, even if you are several miles from the blast site. If you are within 5 miles of an atomic explosion and you don't have enough time to run, the best option is to get inside of the basement of a tall building or inside of an interior room without windows. If you live in a city and you can't find a basement to hide in, you can also run to the 10th floor or higher of a very tall building because it should be high up enough to avoid at least some of the debris. However, do keep in mind here that underground is always going to be the best option. Number 8. Shield yourself. If you are outside during a nuclear attack and there are few options for places to hide, FEMA recommends finding a concrete building and using it to shield yourself from the direction of the blast. This isn't ideal for a long-term hiding spot, but it could possibly give you enough time to survive the initial attack before moving on to finding better shelter. After the attacks on Hiroshima, the only building that survived near the center of the blast was the concrete Genbaku Dome. Today, the site is used as a museum and memorial for the lives that were lost during that attack. Number 7. Avoid fallout. If you are living within a few miles of a nuclear attack, your main concern should be avoiding fallout. Fallout is a mix of dirt and radioactive debris, and it moves with the wind. Within the first week or two after a blast, it can be carried several miles away from ground zero. Even if you live 50 to 100 miles away from the blast site, pay attention to the news about the direction of where the fallout is moving, because it's possible that you may still have to evacuate or take shelter underground to avoid radiation. If you're not sure if you live within a safe distance of any potential attack, there is a rather frightening website called Nuke that allows you to simulate what would happen after a nuclear explosion, and it will tell you just how many miles fallout is likely to travel. Number 6. Distance yourself. According to ready.gov, the most likely targets for a nuclear attack would be the locations that would be considered important for commerce or government, such as capitol buildings, military bases, power plants, and major ports for transportation. Obviously, if your job keeps you close to these places, you may not be able to change where you live. But if you are given a warning that a missile is on its way, be sure to get as far away from any of these types of buildings as you possibly can. If you happen to be driving when you get a text message about an impending nuclear attack, it's best to get as far away from that blast site as humanly possible. However, it's also best to avoid driving on major highways, especially since you may have mere minutes to seek shelter. In the event of a disaster, highways tend to get jammed when they fill with people who are desperate to get out of the city. If you've ever seen The Walking Dead, you may remember the highway leading out of Atlanta filled with cars of people who were trying to get away from the zombies. Unfortunately, if a major city has just 15 minutes to evacuate, highways would look just like they did in that TV show. If at all possible, stick to driving on back roads. Number 5. Get clean. If you happen to be outside during a nuclear blast, or you've been evacuating, it's likely that fallout has settled on your clothing and skin while you were seeking shelter. This means you should clean yourself off as soon as you are safely inside a shelter. Ready.gov recommends removing your clothing, placing it in a plastic bag, and taking this as far away from humans and animals as possible. Then you should take a shower, but be careful not to scrub too hard because scratching your skin will be far worse. Use as much shampoo and soap as possible, but do not condition your hair or use lotion because it will hold any radioactive materials to your skin. You should also blow your nose and wipe your ears and eyes. After the first shower, it's best to avoid tap water because the radiation from the fallout will seep into the groundwater. Number 4. Stay inside and wait for news. Once you are in a shelter that is a safe distance from the center of a nuclear blast, it's still possible for radiation to linger for several weeks or longer, depending on the size of the bomb. After the nuclear power plant disaster in Fukushima, the town remained uninhabitable for years after the blast. Unfortunately, there's no way of knowing just how bad radiation will be until the disaster occurs, but it's estimated that it will take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks before radiation levels disperse enough to make it safe to go outside. Listen to your radio, TV, or internet for updates on when it's safe to go outside. Number 3. Do not scavenge. In most movies of a post-apocalyptic world, we see characters raiding grocery stores or farms for food and supplies. While that might make sense during a zombie apocalypse, it's the last thing you'll want to do when surviving nuclear fallout. Just like groundwater, radiation can spread into food and livestock. No matter how tempting the food on the shelf is, it's best not to eat it because you will be ingesting something that was fully exposed to radiation. Don't be tempted to steal non-food items either because you'll be carrying the radiation away with you. After the nuclear disaster in Fukushima, even cars, gold, and jewels were left behind due to the high levels of radiation lingering on everything. If you're outside at all, it's much smarter to spend that time evacuating than hanging around and scavenging. Number 2. Have an escape plan. Now that you know what to do if you're caught off guard by a nuclear blast, it would be wise to prepare an escape plan for your family and for your friends. If you live in a city, find out where your local nuclear bomb shelters are located and calculate just how long it would take for you to get to them from both your home and from your work. Google Maps actually provides the addresses of nuclear fallout shelters. It's worth taking a few minutes out of your day to see exactly which buildings you can run to in case of an emergency. Number 1. Be prepared. Last and definitely not least, you should stock your home with preparations for any disaster, whether it's natural like a hurricane or apocalyptic like nuclear fallout. Be sure to keep bottled water, canned food, a first aid kit, and flashlights. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, potassium iodine helps to prevent your thyroid gland from absorbing radiation. You should also be able to find these tablets at your local pharmacy. You can also buy solar-powered battery packs to charge your smartphone in the case that the power goes out. There are plenty of doomsday prepper websites out there if you want some more ideas on what you may need to do to get ready for a potential attack. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also over there on the right, some videos from the archives that you might also enjoy. And as always, thank you for watching.